If you have ever wanted to create a professional font out of your handwriting for lettering comics, I am going to show you how. And it's truly going to be a professional font. It's not just going to be a single set of glyphs. So this is going to create several alternates for each glyph or character, and you'll also be able to have several styles or families within your font. So regular, italicized, bold, and bold italicized. You can do more than that if you want, but those are the basics. Things that we're going to need to create our own handwriting font are Adobe Illustrator and the Fontself plugin. You're also going to need a way to get your hand lettering into your computer. So if you're going to do it on paper, you're going to need a scanner or a camera to get that in, or you're going to need a tablet and a program on your computer such as Photoshop or Clip Studio. So first thing you need to do is go over to Fontself, which is fontself.com, and download the program. It's $40 and it is 100% worth it. If you want to do a free font that's pretty limited, you can go over to calligrapher.com. You don't need any extra software, but it is pretty limited. And the biggest thing I found, even with the paid version, is you had to do all of the kerning and spacing by hand, and even with a ton of work, I could never quite get it to look how I wanted to. So that's why I recommend Fontself. It has a feature that does it automatically, and it is amazing and 100% worth every penny of the $40. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go ahead and write out your glyphs. I'm going to do it on my computer. I'm also going to use Clip Studio. You need to write out your glyphs really large with a high resolution. I think my document was 9:6 with 1200 dpi. We're doing this because we're going to convert our glyphs to vectors in Illustrator, and if they're not large enough, Illustrator isn't going to do a good job. So this is an example of a few that weren't large enough, and you can see how terrible they look when converted. So we're doing them really big. Again, I did 9:6 at 1200 dpi. I'd recommend doing a test on some of the more complex glyphs, such as like the asterisk and the @ symbol, and making sure Illustrator does them well. And if they don't, go back and make them bigger and try again. The other thing you can do if you have Clip Studio is draw on a vector layer, not a raster layer. So on the vector layer, you'll be able to resize without any loss in quality. Though when you export it, it does convert it to a raster. So again, make them big so Illustrator can do a good job. We're going to create 3 sets of uppercase letters and a couple sets of numbers, punctuations, and the rest of the characters. So basically we're just going to go through the keyboard and do all of the characters' glyphs on the keyboard. What this does is this gives you alternate glyphs to use so your lettering looks more natural and not so uniform, which is kind of the point of this. In comics, lettering is traditionally done in all caps. Some folks do use lowercase lettering, and you can do that if you like, but I personally prefer the all caps look, and so that's the example we're going to do here today. You can go through and write out the alphabet if you like, but you'll get a more natural look if you just write out a bunch of stuff. So then you can go back through that page of things that you wrote out, and you're going to be able to pick and choose the ones that you like to assemble your sets. So I used a few different pangrams. A pangram is a sentence that uses all the letters of the alphabet, such as the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. You also need to do the same thing with your numbers, punctuations, and other characters a few times. A couple more things with comic book lettering. The crossbar I is used for personal pronouns such as I like cake or I'm going to the store. Otherwise, you just use the vertical stroke version. The other is the squiggly brackets. You probably are never going to use these when lettering a comic, so most comic fonts, they change them to breath marks instead. Once you've got your page filled, you go back through it and you're going to select the ones that you like. You do want to make sure that they look a little bit different from each other, because again, the point is when they're next to each other, it just looks a little more natural and not like a computer did it. Your assembled set should look something like this. one set for the uppercase letters with an alternate crossbar I, 2 more sets for the lowercase, 2 sets of numbers, and 2 sets of the rest of the punctuations and characters. So now you're going to set up a guide and resize any of the glyphs that are needed to make sure everything is relatively uniform in size. You're going to repeat the same process to create your bold sets. If you're using Clip Studio and used vector layer, you can use the correct line tool to bump up the weight of your glyphs instead of rewriting them all. If you don't have this option, you'll just need to go in and increase your pen size to a thickness that you like and write out all your glyphs in that thicker weight. Finally, I took those sets and resized them on their own to fill the document size. I did 3 sets of letters on one page, and then I named that something like letters regular and then saved that as a JPEG, and then I did the 2 sets of numbers and the remaining glyphs on a page as well, and then I named it characters regular and saved it as a JPEG, and then do the exact same thing for the bold. So the set of letters on one page and then the rest of the characters on another page, and then save those as JPEGs. So now we're in Illustrator, and we are going to go ahead and open up our letters, regular letters file. We'll start off with those. So that imports the letters that you made in whatever program you made it in. So we are going to use the selection tool and select that image, and now we are going to turn it into a vector. So I'm actually going to zoom in so you can see this. So we're going to go to Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. So that has just turned this into vectors, and you can see we didn't really lose any of the quality. So I can zoom in pretty close, and that did not lose any quality. So now we are going to select the black portion. So we're going to get our magic wand, and we are going to click on any black area. So you can see right here, this is blank right now. So once we click on a black area, we've selected everything that's black. You can confirm by that is now black. So now we are going to go ahead and cut all those out. So you can go to Edit Cut if you want to do it that way, but the easy way is, of course, Control X, and it cuts those out. So you can see now we have like kind of this ghost image here, and that is the white space that was left over. So we're going to go back to our selection tool, and we are going to select all of this and hit delete on the keyboard. We're now going to paste that back in place. So again, you can go to Edit, Paste, but we're going to just do Control V for Velcro or paste in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this into a new document. So we're going to go File, New, or Control New, and we're going to make this pretty big since our original file is pretty big. So I've made this 1500 pixels by 2000 pixels. The rest of this is all good, so we're going to hit Create. And so since we've already had this on a clipboard, we're just going to go ahead and paste it here. So Control V, and that has pasted it into this new document. So now what we need to do is we need to get these all on their own line. So we're going to select this one and put it on the line with this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Same thing for this one. Put it on this line, and this one is on this line. So we'll clean this up a little bit. We're just going to put this at the top. So this is actually, this top row is our capital letters. This crossbar I is going to be our alternate for this capital letter I, and then these bottom two are our lowercase. So again, in comics, usually everything is capitalized, so those will be, even though they're capitalized, those are going to be our lowercase letters on the keyboard. So let's go ahead and create our first font. So we need to open up Fontself. So we go to Window, Extension, and open up Fontself. So now what we need to do is, we're just going to move this over a little. We're going to select this first row with everything selected. We're going to drag it over onto Fontself. So it'll give you a couple places you can drop it, but since that is our capital, that's our capital letters, we're going to drop it in this top one, which is the uppercase. So we drop that in there. It's importing, and then it automatically goes ahead and labels all of your letters. So at this point, it already looks pretty nice, but it's not spaced and kerned. So if you wanted to do it by hand, you could come over to that. Let me show you again. So we go over to this Advanced tab, and then you can do these by hand. So that's all of our H's. So you can type in a number here and do it that way, or you can actually, if you look closely, you'll see there's spaces on these, so you can move these over as well and do it manually. But that is the lame way to do it, and again, the main reason that we're using Fontself is for this Smart feature. So we are going to click on Smart, and then it tells you it's going to space and kern everything with one click. So automatically it has done all of that for us. So it's right here, it's the more that you do, the more arbitrary numbers it says the time you saved, and I will attest to, yes, it takes an insane amount of time to do this all by hand. So now we need to take this one random I, and we need to put that again with our capital letters. So we're again going to drag this over. So you can only use these automatic ones if you have the right amount of characters. So 26 letters. So with one letter, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to put this in the any character batch and do it manually. So there it is. It pops up, and it doesn't know what it is. So we're just going to click on that, and we're going to tell it that it is a capital I. So we're going to go Shift I on the keyboard, and then that is going to then pop this window up and ask, do we want to replace the I that's already in there, or do we want to use it as an alternate? And we want to use it as an alternate. So now if we highlight this I that's already in there, it gives us this alternate I that we can then replace it with. So if you look again at that, you can see that it's changing it out. So now we need to do this with our lowercase. So we're going to highlight that first row, and we are going to drag this over, and again, these are lowercase. Drop that in there, and then again it auto fills in what they are, since they're in the proper order and on the same line. So again, we're going to hit Smart, and yes, we want to do that. Tells you how much time you saved. And so the thing that it's doing is it's not just putting a space between, like, say, this W and O, and it's all the same space for every letter. It goes through each individual pairing and optimizes the space between those. So it will go through and say, this is what the W and O look like next to each other. This is what the Q and the O look like next to each other. And each individual glyph or character, it's going to go through and figure out individually the best amount of spacing. And then you're going to be able to go back, if for whatever reason it doesn't look quite right to you, you can go back in and adjust things. So look at this S right here. See how it's kind of dropped down a little and it doesn't look great for whatever reason. So we're going to go to our lowercase s, and you can look here and see it is dropped down for whatever reason. It's a little low. So we're just going to pop that up, and if you look at that S in the sentence, it popped up as well. So again, you're able to tweak and go in and make it as precise as you want. So now let's get this final line of lowercase letters, and we're going to take this over and again put it in the lowercase area. And now it's going to say, oh, do we want to replace these or do we want to alternate? And yes, again, we're going to use these as alternates. And make sure you check this box, apply to remaining glyphs, or it's going to ask you for each individual letter if you want to do it. So click alternate, and then now you can see you have alternates for each letter. So there's 2 A's, there's 2 B's, 2 C's, and technically you have 3 since you have the uppercase as well. So once again, we're going to hit Smart, and it is going to go through and space and kern all that stuff. So now if we go in here, we can type in here. So you can see that's already spaced pretty fantastically. And then so now what we're able to do is look, you can see with letters that we have 2 that's next to each other, we can alternate that so it looks a little more natural. Same thing with this O, we can do that here. And you can just do whatever random letter too if you want, so change that out. So now we need to go ahead and I'm going to minimize this, and so we're going to go ahead and get the rest of our glyphs, so the symbols and punctuation. So we're going to Control Open. Oh, actually, let's save this first. So we're going to hit Control Save, Control S, and we're going to save this as whatever we want to. So I'm just going to call this Sample Font Sheet. Okay, so now we're going to open our regular symbols. So wherever you've got that, go ahead and open that up. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the letters. So with our selection tool, click on it. We go to Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. And then we are going to select the black area. Yes, it selected it. We're now going to Control X, and again, with our selection tool, we're going to select all of that white area, delete it on the keyboard, and we are going to do Control Shift V to paste in place. So now the difference here between these glyphs and those uppercase letters is that a lot of these are multiple pieces per glyph. So like this percent sign, you can see it's 3 different things. This equal sign is 2. So now we need to go in and group these together. So you're just going to use a selection tool, highlight that specific glyph, and then you can go to Object, Group, and then that now groups that. But the easier thing to do is use the keyboard shortcut, and so we'll do that with this one. So we're going to select this equal signs, and we're going to do Control G, and you can now see that's now grouped together. So now we need to go through and group all of the things that are their own thing. So this one I'm actually going to zoom in. I don't like how it looks, so I'm actually going to move this out a little, and move this in a little, just tweak this a bit. And now I'm going to group that one. Okay, I think I got them all. So now, same thing, we're going to Control C to copy all this and go back to our sample font sheet, and we are going to Control Shift V to paste in place. So same thing here, we're going to go ahead and put all this on one line. Put these on the same line, but we will bring them in separately. So we'll do our numbers first. Do that first set. Oop, we gotta open this back up. So now we want to drop this in 0 through 9, and again, that was why it was important to have that 0 first, because that's how they have it. And you can see it went through and went ahead and put those in there. We're going to space those. And do it with that second set. we are going to use alternates. So you can now see we've got 2 of each. Now this next step is going to take more time, so it doesn't really recognize your glyph symbols and punctuations because there's no real set way to put these in, so we're going to have to do these manually. So we go down to any character batch and drop that into this. So you can see it doesn't know what they are, so now we're going to have to go through and tell them one by one what they are. So that accent mark, tab over, do that, tab over, do exclamation, tab over that. So I'm going to fast forward here so you don't have to watch all this, but you just go through and tell what each of them are. Now these ones are those, again, I don't know what they're called, the squiggly brackets, but since it's comics and you're never going to use those, we make breath marks. But those are the squiggly brackets on there, on the keyboard. Now here, this is why we do 2 different versions of the quotation marks. So you do the first one, you do another one, and it's gonna again say, do you want to replace this or use it as an alternate? We're using it as an alternate. Okay, go ahead and smart kern. And we do it again. And this one's going to take even longer because each time it's going to ask you, do you want to replace or alternate? So again, go through and tell it what they are and tell them that you want it as an alternate. And I'm going to do these last exclamation and question marks, and honestly you probably don't need all of these alternate symbols, but I do like having a couple options for my exclamation point and my question mark. If I've got like 2 or 3 in a row kind of thing, it just looks a little nicer. So now we have our first full set of regular characters. So again, you can, it's kind of hard to see, but we can change some of these out. So we've got multiple things. And so again, you're probably going to need to go in here, and I find particularly with some of the punctuations, you sometimes want to go in and tweak those, bring them down or up a little, like the apostrophes and your commas and your quotations. I find those you tend to need to tweak, and then honestly they're kind of a pain to find because for whatever reason they kind of mix them in random orders in here. So you can see these are just randomly put in here. A little odd that they're not grouped together, but whatever. So again, go through, make any adjustments that you want to with these, and that is our first set. So if we go over here to font info, you can name it, and that's regular, and then so we can call this whatever. So we'll call this Josh Handwriting. And you can fill out the rest of the information if you like, not necessary, but you can do whatever you want with it. So, you can visit me at joshdrawscomics.com. So we are going to save this, and you're going to tell it wherever you want to save it. I'm going to just save it on my desktop for now. We hit save. and now that set is saved. So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to take this and do an italicized version. So we are going to, with the selection tool, select everything. We're going to Control-C to copy, we're going to Control-V to paste, and we are going to pull it down so it's not overlapping. And we're going to leave it all selected, and we are going to shear it so it looks italicized. So I already have my transform window open, but if you don't, you just go to Window and go down to Transform and click on Transform, and that's going to pop this window up. And then this little area here is the shear section, and I find doing it about 20 looks good for me, but you can adjust to whatever you think looks best for you. And it doesn't matter if it's going off the document page, but I'll put it back on anyway. So now we are going to go ahead and do the same thing, but we are going to do a new style. So if you hadn't saved it, it's going to ask if you want a new font. So if you hadn't saved it, go ahead and save it. So now we want a new style, and we want it to be italic. So we're just going to do the exact same thing that we did with the regular. And again, you're just going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to skip over this, and then we're now going to do our bold font. So we're going to do the same thing with bold, so go ahead and bring those bold letters in. And exact same thing. Selection tool, select your image, object, image trace, make and expand. And again, the reason we made these letters so big was because if you make them small, this image trace is going to do a terrible job, and it's going to clump your letters together and just make them look pretty awful. So magic wand, select the black area, we are going to Control X, we're then going to selection tool, delete that white, and we're again going to Control New and create a new document and paste that in there. Again, we want to, by the way, V is a shortcut for the selection tool. We're going to put these on the same line. Now we're going to do a new style, and we're going to tell it bold. So the exact same process. So again, I'm just going to fast forward and do that with these. So we are done with the bold. We're going to go ahead and save that. It automatically saves it as bold. And we're going to do the same thing, and we with bold, and we're going to select it, copy it, paste it, and we are going to turn this one into italics also by shearing at about 20 or whatever looks good to you. So now we are going to say new style, and we are going to say bold italic. And then we start all over again. And once you do all that, same thing, you hit save and save it, and it will automatically save as bold italic. And so the next thing we're going to do is install everything. Now we're going to install the fonts, so go to your desktop or wherever you save them, double click on them, and if it's, I think it works the same for Mac and Windows, but you just hit install, and it installs the font. You need to do that with each of them. And they should now be on your computer. So we'll go back over to Illustrator and let's see if they are there. There they all are. So we're just going to go ahead and pop in that first one. And we're going to the size. So now you should be able to do those things like the contextual alternates. So we'll switch out that W so it's different than that one. And then you can just go in and kind of go through it and say, just change the random thing. So there's a little bit variation to the look of your work. So that again is kind of the one annoying thing. I wish it was an automatic contextual alternate that you could do that instead of just going through and choosing what you want to change. But hopefully that'll be an update down the line. And so then the other thing is we can now go ahead and change over here what kind that we want. So there's italic. Let's do bold italic. So there you go. You now have your own personal handwriting font that you can letter your comics with. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys did, so feel free to hit me up and show me your own font. And if you want to check out some of my work, my comics, go over to joshdrawscomics.com. It's got links to all my socials, so you can check me out there. Good luck, and look forward to seeing your stuff.